Millionaire was mourning his wife, until two twin girls entered his office holding a paper that made him, before anything else, let's see how connected we really are. What's one thing you can see from your window right now? The elevator climbed, silently to the 52nd floor as Marcus Wellington checked his watch. 5:30 a.m. sharp. 2 years of this routine, arriving before dawn, leaving after midnight, filling every moment with work to avoid the crushing silence of grief. At 38, Marcus had built Wellington Industries into a corporate empire, but success felt hollow now. The mahogany-paneled office that once buzzed with Sophia's laughter during surprise visits now felt like a mausoleum. Her oncology journals still sat on the corner shelf, gathering dust like his heart. "Good morning, Mr. Wellington." Margaret's voice carried careful concern. His assistant of 10 years had watched him transform from a man who remembered employees' birthdays into someone who fired half the staff after Sophia's funeral. She placed the morning reports on his desk with practiced efficiency. Marcus flipped through proposals with mechanical precision. The community medical center Sophia had founded, he'd already signed preliminary papers to sell it. "Sentimentalism doesn't generate dividends," he muttered, echoing words that would have horrified his late wife. The building's employees had a secret nickname for him, the Ghost of Wellington. He haunted the halls, present but not really there, casting shadows instead of light. During the morning briefing, Margaret hesitated before placing an envelope beside his coffee. "This arrived yesterday, sir, hand-delivered," the woman said. She knew Mrs. Wellington. Marcus's fingers froze over. The cream-colored paper, his name was written in careful script, feminine handwriting that stirred something deep in his chest. Not Sophia's writing, but someone who cared enough to write by hand. He slipped the letter into his jacket without opening it, his attention returning to the cold numbers on quarterly reports. But for the first time in 2 years, something besides profit margins occupied a corner of his mind. The letter felt warm against his chest, like a heartbeat he'd forgotten how to hear. The office clock struck midnight when Marcus finally allowed himself to breathe. Alone in the dim glow of his desk lamp, he pulled out the letter with trembling fingers. The envelope felt heavier than it should, weighted with possibility and dread. "Dear Marcus," it began. "I know we haven't spoken since Sophia's funeral. I'm Patricia Chen, head nurse in oncology. Sophia made me promise something before she passed, to watch over a special family if they ever needed help. That time has come." Marcus's throat tightened. Patricia. He remembered her now. The steady, compassionate woman who had held Sophia's hand during those final terrible days, who had somehow made the hospital feel less like a place of endings. "Claire Morrison, one of our nurses, has received the same diagnosis Sophia had. Pancreatic cancer, stage 3. She has twin daughters, Harper and Hazel, just 6 years old. Claire doesn't know I'm writing this. She's too proud to ask for help." The letter shook in Marcus's hands as memories flooded back. Sophia's dreams of adoption, her gentle voice saying, "One day we'll give some lucky children all the love we have stored up." The girls ask why Mama's angel, that's what they call Sophia, can't save their mother too. They drew pictures of her with wings, watching over sick mommies. "I'm not asking for money, Marcus. I'm asking for a conversation. Sophia always said you had a heart of gold beneath that business armor." Marcus read the final lines 3 times. "If you want to honor her memory in a way that matters, call me. Some promises transcend the grave." For the first time in 2 years, Marcus felt something crack in the ice around his heart. He reached for his phone, then stopped. Was he ready to feel again? To risk the possibility of loss? Outside his window, the city slept peacefully, unaware that in a sterile hospital room across town, 2 little girls were probably whispering prayers to an angel named Sophia. What will Marcus decide? Can a broken man find the courage to open his heart to a family in desperate need? 3 days later, Marcus found himself walking through the pediatric ward of St. Mary's Hospital, his heart hammering against his ribs. Patricia had arranged what she called a casual encounter. Nothing forced, just a chance to meet the family that had unknowingly become part of Sophia's final promise. Claire works part-time while managing her treatments, Patricia explained, as they approached the children's play area. She's incredibly strong, but the girls don't know how serious things are. Marcus saw them before introductions were made. Two identical blonde girls, maybe 6 years old, building an elaborate tower with colorful blocks. Their mother sat nearby, thin but alert, her head wrapped in a cheerful yellow scarf. "Claire, I'd like you to meet Marcus Wellington," Patricia said smoothly. He was Sophia's husband. "Marcus, this is Claire Morrison and her daughters." The moment Patricia mentioned Sophia's name, both girls looked up with startling blue eyes. "You knew our angel mama?" Harper, the more assertive twin, asked directly. Marcus knelt to their level, unsure how to answer. "Angel mama?" Claire smiled softly. "I told them about a special nurse who became an angel to watch over other mamas in heaven. Sophia was. She was extraordinary with the children here." Hazel, shyer than her sister, tugged on Marcus's sleeve. "Look what we drew for her." She produced a crayon drawing, 3 stick figures under a floating angel with yellow hair and wings. "That's me, Harper, and Mama," Hazel whispered. "We ask Angel Sophia to take good care of our mama like she took care of other people." Something fundamental shifted inside Marcus's chest, a glacier cracking after a long, brutal winter. These children had turned his wife's death into something beautiful, something hopeful. "She would love this picture," he managed, his voice rougher than intended. "Would you like to have dinner with us this weekend?" Claire asked suddenly. "The girls have been asking about Sophia's family." For the first time since the funeral, Marcus said yes to something that mattered. Will this simple dinner invitation become the key to healing Marcus's broken heart? Saturday evening found Marcus standing outside a modest apartment building, holding a bouquet of daisies, Sophia's favorite flowers. His hands shook slightly as he knocked on door 4B. "Uncle Marcus," Harper and Hazel chorused as Claire opened the door, both girls launching themselves at his legs in an enthusiastic welcome that caught him completely off guard. The apartment was small but warm, filled with children's artwork, family photos, and the smell of homemade spaghetti. Marcus realized he'd forgotten what a real home felt like. Not the sterile perfection of his penthouse, but this lived-in chaos that spoke of love and laughter. "Girls, set the table while I finish the sauce," Claire instructed, and Marcus watched, in amazement as the twins worked together with practiced efficiency, chattering about their school day. During dinner, Harper looked up from her spaghetti. "Uncle Marcus, what was Angel Sophia like when she was here with us?" The question hit him like a physical blow. For 2 years, he'd avoided speaking Sophia's name aloud. But something about these earnest blue eyes made the words come easier. "She was brilliant," he began slowly. "She wanted to help sick children get better, and she dreamed of having little girls just like you two." "Why didn't she?" Hazel asked with innocent directness. "We ran out of time," Marcus whispered. Later, as the girls played in their room, Claire poured coffee and revealed something that stopped Marcus cold. Sophia left behind research notes, an experimental immunotherapy protocol for pancreatic cancer. She was so close to a breakthrough when... "She never told me," Marcus said, stunned. "She didn't want to get your hopes up. But Marcus, if that research could be completed, it might help families like mine. Sophia's work could save lives she never got to touch." For the first time in 2 years, Marcus felt something stir in his chest that wasn't pain, it was purpose. Driving home, he realized Sophia's death might not be meaningless if her work could live on. Could completing Sophia's research be the key to healing both Marcus and this struggling family? 3 weeks passed in a blur of afternoon visits that became the highlight of Marcus's days. He found himself leaving the office at reasonable hours, something Margaret noted with surprised approval. "Your move, Uncle Marcus," Harper announced, from across the chessboard he'd brought from home, the same set where Sophia had beaten him countless times. The little girl had inherited her mother's strategic mind, thinking 3 moves ahead while absently twirling her blonde hair. Meanwhile, Hazel sprawled on the carpet with her math homework, Marcus patiently explaining fractions using pizza slices drawn on paper. "If we eat 2 pieces out of 8, what's left?" he asked, marveling at how natural this felt. But beneath the growing warmth, A shadow loomed. Claire was losing weight, her energy fading despite her determined smile. The traditional chemotherapy wasn't working. "We need to talk," Patricia said when Marcus arrived one Thursday evening to find Claire napping on the couch, exhausted from treatment. They spoke quietly in the kitchen while the girls watched cartoons. "There's an experimental immunotherapy trial based on Sophia's research protocols," Patricia explained. "It's showing promising results, but it's not covered by insurance. The cost is around $800,000. Marcus didn't hesitate. "I'll cover it." "Claire won't accept charity," Patricia warned. "She's too proud." When Claire woke, Marcus presented his proposal carefully. "I want to fund completion of Sophia's research. You'd be a patient researcher, documenting the process to help refine the treatment for future families. This isn't charity. It's scientific collaboration." Claire studied his face for a long moment. "Sophia always wanted her work to save other mothers," she said finally. "If I can help make that happen, you'd be honoring her memory," Marcus assured her. Outside, the first snow of winter began to fall, but inside the small apartment, hope was finally blooming again. Can Sophia's unfinished work become the miracle this family desperately needs? Marcus stood in the doorway of his penthouse guest suite, watching contractors install bunk beds and paint clouds on the ceiling. For the first time in 2 years, his sterile home was about to have children's laughter echoing through its halls. "Girls will stay here during your intensive treatment weeks," he'd explained to Claire. "It's closer to the hospital, and they'll have their own space." When Harper and Hazel saw their temporary room, they squealed with delight. "It's like a princess castle," Hazel exclaimed, spinning under the painted stars Marcus had insisted the decorator add. Within days, his once pristine home transformed. Drawings appeared on the refrigerator, homework scattered across the dining table, and tiny shoes by the front door. The silence that had haunted him was replaced by the beautiful chaos of childhood. Arguments over television shows, requests for bedtime stories, and the simple joy of someone asking, "How was your day?" At Wellington Industries, the changes didn't go unnoticed. "Sir, you left at 5:30 yesterday," Margaret observed, barely concealing her smile. "And you asked about my grandson's soccer game." Marcus had reactivated the scholarship program Sophia championed, approved the on-site daycare he'd canceled after her death, and even smiled during budget meetings. Department heads whispered about their CEO's remarkable transformation. During Claire's treatment sessions, Marcus often sat beside her as the experimental immunotherapy dripped through her IV. "Sophia used to talk about you constantly," Claire said one afternoon. "She'd light up describing your weekend plans, your dreams of starting a family." "I forgot how to dream," Marcus admitted. "She never stopped believing you'd find your way back to the man she fell in love with," Claire said softly. "She'd be so proud watching you with my girls." Driving home that evening with Harper and Hazel chattering in the back seat about their school day, Marcus realized something profound. He wasn't just helping this family survive, they were teaching him how to live again. The boardroom felt colder than usual as Marcus faced 12 stern faces around the mahogany table. Richard Hawthorne, his ambitious vice president, had called this urgent strategy meeting with carefully calculated timing. "Gentlemen, ladies," Hawthorne began, his voice smooth as silk, "we need to address concerning trends in our CEO's recent decisions." Marcus kept his expression neutral, but his jaw tightened. He'd known this moment would come. "Medical research. Funding has tripled in 6 months," Hawthorne continued, sliding papers across the table. "Educational grants have resumed without board approval, and our CEO has been frequently absent from critical meetings." Board member Patricia Steinberg leaned forward. "Marcus, these expenditures need explanation. Shareholders are asking questions." "My wife prioritized these investments before her death," Marcus replied evenly. "I'm simply honoring commitments that should never have been canceled." "Emotional decisions rarely yield profitable outcomes," Hawthorne pressed. "The company's focus has shifted from aggressive growth to sentiment." Other executives exchanged glances. Marcus could see doubt creeping into their faces, whispers about their CEO's stability, his capacity to lead objectively. Sophia saw potential for impact beyond immediate profits, Marcus said firmly. These investments strengthen our brand, improve employee retention, and position us as industry leaders in corporate responsibility. The room fell silent. Hawthorne smiled thinly, the expression of a predator sensing weakness. Of course, we all respected Mrs. Wellington, Hawthorne said carefully. But grief can cloud judgment. Perhaps the board should consider additional oversight of executive decisions? Marcus felt the ground shifting beneath his feet. By protecting Claire and the girls' privacy, he'd left himself vulnerable to attack. He couldn't explain the real reasons behind his transformation without exposing the family he'd grown to love. "This meeting is adjourned," Marcus said, rising. "My decisions stand." But walking to his office, he realized Hawthorne had just fired the first shot in a war he hadn't seen coming. 6 months into Claire's experimental treatment, Marcus sat in the oncology ward waiting room, nervously checking his watch. Today would reveal whether Sophia's research was truly working. "The scans show remarkable improvement," Dr. Peterson announced, his voice carrying cautious optimism. "Tumors have stabilized. Some have actually shrunk. Claire, how are you feeling?" For the first time since beginning treatment, Claire smiled genuinely. "Strong. Really strong." Marcus watched her walk steadily to the car. No nausea, no exhaustion. Just a mother eager to share good news with her daughters. Harper and Hazel, now 7 years old, had grown taller and more confident during their months of staying with Uncle Marcus. "Mama doesn't look sick anymore," Hazel observed as they entered the penthouse. "That's because she's getting better," Harper declared with her typical authority. "Should we have a party?" Within an hour, they'd transformed Marcus's formal dining room into a celebration space. Streamers hung from chandeliers, store-bought cake sat on fine china, and children's music played through speakers that usually carried board meeting calls. Watching Claire laugh as the girls performed an impromptu dance, Marcus felt something shift in his chest. Not just gratitude or relief, but something deeper and more frightening. "Uncle Marcus," Harper said suddenly, looking between him and her mother with 7-year-old directness, "are you going to marry Mama so we can be a real family?" The room fell silent. Claire's cheeks flushed pink, and Marcus felt every protective wall he'd built threatening to crumble. "I'm still learning how to have a family again," he answered honestly. "Your mama has been teaching me that it's possible." Claire's eyes met his across the room, and for the first time neither looked away. Later, after the girls fell asleep, they stood on his balcony overlooking the city lights. "Thank you," Claire whispered. "Not just for the treatment, but for giving my daughters their joy back." When Marcus kissed her, gentle and tentative, it felt like coming home. 3 weeks after their first kiss, Marcus arrived at Wellington Industries to find an emergency board meeting already in session. His stomach dropped as he entered the boardroom, to see Richard Hawthorne commanding the head of the table. A thick folder spread before him. "Ah, Marcus," Hawthorne said with false warmth. "Perfect timing. I've been presenting some concerning findings to our colleagues." 12 board members sat in uncomfortable silence as Hawthorne opened his attack. "Ladies and gentlemen, I've documented a pattern of erratic behavior that threatens our fiduciary responsibility to shareholders." Marcus took his seat, fighting to keep his expression calm as Hawthorne unveiled charts and graphs like a prosecutor presenting evidence. Unauthorized expenditures totaling $2.3 million on medical research that provides no direct return. Frequent absences during critical merger negotiations. Emotional decision-making that prioritizes sentiment over profit. Hawthorne's voice carried righteous indignation. "I've spoken with executive headhunters who confirm that rival firms are questioning Marcus's capacity for objective leadership." Board member Harrison Webb cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Marcus, these allegations require response. The shareholders are nervous." Marcus faced an impossible choice. He could reveal Claire's situation, explain how saving one family had restored his purpose and actually improved his leadership abilities. But exposing them meant destroying their privacy, potentially making Claire and the girls targets of corporate warfare. "Our quarterly profits are up 18%, Marcus said firmly. "Employee satisfaction has reached record highs. The medical research investments have generated positive media coverage worth millions in marketing value. But what about the absences? Pressed board member Sandra Chen. Missing the Hartwell Industries meeting cost us a potential $12 million contract. Marcus had been at the hospital that day, holding Claire's hand during a particularly difficult treatment session. I had a family emergency, he said simply. Hawthorne pounced. Family emergency? Marcus, you have no immediate family. Your behavior suggests grief-related instability that compromises your judgment. The accusation hung in the air like poison. Marcus felt every protective instinct screaming, but revealing the truth would put Claire and the girls in Hawthorne's crosshairs. My personal life remains personal, Marcus said through gritted teeth. Judge me by results, not speculation. The vote was closer than he'd expected. 7 in favor of maintaining confidence, 5 supporting Hawthorne's motion for enhanced oversight. Marcus won, but barely. As the meeting dispersed, Hawthorne approached with a predatory smile. This isn't over, Marcus. Next time, I'll have more allies. Walking to his office, Marcus felt the walls closing in. Then his phone rang. The hospital. Mr. Wellington? Claire's developed a serious infection. You need to come immediately. The corporate battle suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the terror that gripped his heart. Racing through traffic, Marcus realized he'd do anything to protect his new family, even if it cost him everything else. He found Claire unconscious in the ICU, machines beeping around her pale form. Harper and Hazel sat in the waiting room with Patricia, their eyes wide with fear. The infection is attacking her compromised immune system, the doctor explained. She'll need intensive monitoring for at least 2 weeks. Marcus made his choice. He sent Margaret a simple message. Handle all meetings. Family emergency continues indefinitely. For 14 exhausting days, Marcus lived between the hospital and his penthouse, caring for terrified little girls while fighting his own panic. Hawthorne circulated rumors about his extended absence, gaining new supporters for his coup. But watching Claire slowly recover, seeing Harper and Hazel's relief when their mother finally opened her eyes, Marcus knew he'd chosen correctly. Some things mattered more than corporate empires. The alarm clock screamed at 6 a.m., jolting Marcus from the 3 hours of sleep he'd managed on his penthouse couch. Day 5 of Claire's hospitalization, and he was discovering that caring for twin 7-year-olds was more exhausting than running a Fortune 500 company. Uncle Marcus, Hazel's voice carried from the kitchen, followed by the sound of something crashing. Harper won't let me pour my own cereal. Because you'll spill it. Everywhere like yesterday, Harper's frustrated reply echoed down the hallway. Marcus stumbled toward the chaos, finding Cheerios scattered across his Italian marble floor, and both girls glaring at each other with identical stubborn expressions. This was his new reality, mediating. Breakfast negotiations while trying to remember which twin needed her inhaler and which one was allergic to strawberries. Harper, help your sister clean up. Hazel, next time ask for help reaching the cereal, he said, surprised by how naturally the parental tone came to his voice. Getting them ready for school proved its own challenge. Harper was a perfectionist who redid her ponytail 4 times until it met her exacting standards, while Hazel was a dreamer who forgot to put on shoes until they reached the car. Did you remember your science project? Marcus asked Harper as they drove through morning traffic. Yes, and my permission slip for the field trip, and my library book that's due today. Harper rattled off with military precision. She was Claire's daughter through and through, organized, responsible, carrying weight beyond her years. Uncle Marcus, look at that cloud. Hazel pointed out the window at a formation that vaguely resembled a rabbit. It's hopping across the sky to visit the other clouds. Marcus glanced in the rearview mirror at her wonder-filled expression. Where Harper sought control and structure, Hazel found magic in ordinary moments. 2 sides of the same precious coin. During school hours, Marcus attempted to maintain business operations from hospital waiting rooms and coffee shops near Pinecrest Elementary. Margaret had become his lifeline, fielding calls and managing crises while he navigated this strange new world of parent-teacher conferences and playground pickup lines. The board is asking questions again, Margaret warned during one of their Rushed phone calls. Hawthorne is scheduling individual meetings with members. Handle what you can, Marcus replied, watching through the hospital window as nurses adjusted Claire's IV drip. Everything else waits. The afternoon routine proved even more complex. Harper had soccer practice on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Hazel took art class on Wednesdays, and both needed help with homework that seemed designed to confuse adults. I don't understand this math, Harper wailed one evening, erasing her worksheet for the third time. Her perfectionist streak meant that anything less than flawless was unacceptable. Marcus sat beside her at his dining room table, now permanently covered with school papers and art supplies. Let's work through it step by step. Making mistakes is how we learn. But I should know this already. Harper's eyes filled with frustrated tears. Mama always helped me, and now she's sick and you probably don't even want to deal with stupid homework. The outburst caught Marcus off guard. He pulled the little girl onto his lap, feeling her small body shake with suppressed sobs. Harper, listen to me, he said gently. I want to help you with homework. I want to drive you to soccer practice. I want to braid your hair even though I'm terrible at it. You and your sister and your mama, you're not burdens, you're gifts. Meanwhile, Hazel presented different challenges. She had a tendency to drift off during conversations, lost in elaborate daydreams. One afternoon, Marcus found her standing in the middle of her bedroom, completely dressed except for socks, staring out the window. Hazel, we need to leave for art class in 5 minutes. Uncle Marcus, do you think the birds know where Mama is? She asked with innocent curiosity. Maybe they could tell her we miss her. These moments, Harper's desperate need for perfection, and Hazel's gentle escape into fantasy, taught Marcus more about love than 38 years of life had managed. Each girl needed different reassurance, different patience, different understanding. Evenings at the hospital became sacred time. Claire, though weak, watched Marcus navigate bedtime stories and teeth brushing with growing amazement. You're, natural, she whispered one night after he'd successfully negotiated a compromise about how many stuffed animals could fit in one hospital chair for the girl's visit. I'm terrified every minute, Marcus admitted. Harper had a meltdown at school because her teacher changed seating assignments. Hazel forgot her lunch 3 times this week. I don't know what I'm doing. Claire reached for his hand with effort. But you keep showing up. That's what matters. On the 8th night, when the girls were finally asleep in chairs beside Claire's bed, she gripped Marcus's hand with surprising strength. I need you to promise me something, she said, her voice carrying a mother's desperate urgency. If the infection doesn't respond, if the treatment fails, if I don't make it through this, promise me you won't abandon them. Claire, don't talk like that. Promise me, she insisted, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. They've already lost their biological father. He walked away when things got difficult. I can't bear the thought of them losing you too. Marcus looked at Harper and Hazel, sleeping peacefully despite the uncomfortable chairs, completely trusting that the adults in their lives would keep them safe. These weren't just children he was helping. They were his children in every way. That mattered, I promise, he said without hesitation. They're mine now no matter what happens. I won't let them face the world alone. The words settled into his heart like a vow spoken in church, binding and permanent. 2 days later, Claire's fever broke, the infection began responding to antibiotics, and her immune system started rebuilding its defenses. But Marcus realized the promise he'd made would have been kept regardless of her recovery. Somewhere between learning to braid hair and mediating sisterly disputes, he'd crossed an invisible line. He wasn't just Marcus Wellington, CEO, anymore. He was Uncle Marcus, the man who knew that Harper needed extra encouragement and Hazel needed patient redirection. Driving home with Claire finally discharged and the girls chattering excitedly in the back seat, Marcus understood that his life had been fundamentally reorganized. The corporate empire mattered, but not more than this. Not more than being the steady presence these children deserved. 1 year after receiving Patricia's life-changing letter, Marcus stood on his penthouse balcony watching the moving truck pull away from the building across the street. Claire and the girls were officially his neighbors now, close enough for daily support, far enough to maintain the independence Claire insisted upon. "This feels perfect," Claire said, joining him on the balcony. Her hair had grown back in soft waves and her cheeks carried healthy color that had been absent for so long. The experimental treatment was working beyond their wildest hopes. "Mama, can we see Uncle Marcus's apartment from our new window?" Harper called from inside Claire's spacious two-bedroom apartment that Marcus had quietly purchased and offered, at exactly her current rent price. "Yes, sweetheart. Wave to him from your room," Claire replied, smiling as both girls appeared in the window across the narrow courtyard, pressing their noses against the glass. The arrangement they'd developed over months of trial and adjustment was unconventional, but perfect for their blended family. The girls spent every other weekend with Marcus, Wednesday nights for homework help and spontaneous afternoons whenever Claire had medical appointments or simply needed rest. "Uncle Marcus," Hazel's voice carried across the courtyard. "Come help us arrange our stuffed animals." "In a minute," he called back, marveling at how natural this felt. This back and forth between households, this shared responsibility that had evolved organically rather than through legal documents or formal agreements. At Wellington Industries, the transformation had been equally remarkable. What started as Marcus's personal journey toward healing had revolutionized the entire corporate culture. "Sir, the employee satisfaction surveys just came back," Margaret announced, entering his office with charts that would have thrilled any HR department. 94% approval rating, the highest in company history. The changes had been gradual but comprehensive. The on-site daycare now served 43 families, with a waiting list of employees eager to transfer from other companies. The extended paternity leave policy had attracted top talent from competitors who still operated under outdated family policies. "And the quarterly profits?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "Up 26% from last year," Margaret said with barely concealed pride. "The family-friendly policies aren't just good for morale, they're attracting the kind of employees who stay loyal and work harder." Marcus had discovered something that business schools rarely taught. Companies that treated employees as whole human beings with complex lives often outperformed those that demanded single-minded devotion to profit margins. The revelation had come during a particularly challenging week when Susan Parker, his head of marketing, broke down during a strategy meeting. Her teenage son had been hospitalized after a car accident, but she'd been afraid to request time off during their biggest campaign launch. "Take whatever time you need," Marcus had said immediately. "Family comes first, always." The ripple effects had been extraordinary. Susan's team worked overtime to cover her responsibilities, not because they were required to, but because they knew the same support would be there for them when life inevitably delivered its own crises. 6 months later, Wellington Industries had become the employer of choice for top talent seeking work-life balance. The retention rate had improved by 40%, and the company's reputation for progressive values had opened doors to clients who prioritized corporate social responsibility. "Mr. Wellington?" His secretary's voice came through the intercom. "Dr. Patricia Chen is here to see you." Patricia entered with an expression Marcus had learned to read, the carefully controlled excitement of a medical professional with extraordinary news. "I wanted to tell you in person," Patricia began, settling into the chair across from his desk. "Claire's case study has been accepted for publication in the New England Journal of Medicine. The immunotherapy protocol based on Sophia's research is showing unprecedented success rates." Marcus felt his breath catch. "What does that mean?" "It means we're looking at a potential game changer for pancreatic cancer treatment. Claire's response has been so remarkable that 3 major cancer centers want to begin clinical trials immediately." Patricia's professional composure cracked slightly, revealing genuine emotion. "Marcus, Sophia's work is going to save thousands of lives." The irony wasn't lost on him. Sophia had died before completing research that could have saved her own life, but her work would prevent countless other families from experiencing their tragedy. "There's more," Patricia continued. "The pharmaceutical company handling the trials wants to establish the Sophia Wellington Research Foundation. They're offering significant funding for continued development." Marcus leaned back in his chair, overwhelmed by the circular beauty of it all. His wife's death had led him to Claire's family. Saving Claire had led him back to Sophia's research. Completing Sophia's work would save other families like theirs. Claire will be invited to speak at the International Oncology Conference in 6 months, Patricia added. Her perspective as both medical professional and patient survivor is invaluable for future treatment protocols. That evening, Marcus shared the news with Claire and the girls over dinner at their favorite family restaurant, a casual Italian place where the waiters knew to bring extra crayons for Hazel's tablecloth artwork and didn't mind Harper's detailed questions about ingredient lists. "So Mama's getting famous?" Harper asked, twirling spaghetti with careful precision. "Your mom is helping other sick mommies get better," Marcus explained, "just like Angel Sophia helped her." Hazel looked up from her drawing, a cheerful family, of 4 stick figures under a guardian angel with elaborate wings. "Do you think Angel Sophia knows she's still helping people?" Marcus met Claire's eyes across the table, both thinking the same thing. Whether or not Sophia was watching from somewhere beyond, her legacy was growing stronger every day through the lives she continued to touch. "I think she knows," Claire said softly. "And I think she's proud of all of us for taking care of each other." Walking home through the warm evening air, Marcus carried a sleepy Hazel while Harper skipped ahead, pointing out interesting cloud formations to her mother. This strange, wonderful family they'd built together felt as solid and permanent as anything he'd ever created in the corporate world. The penthouse that had once felt like a sterile monument to his success now echoed with children's voices and carried the warm sense of family dinners. Across the courtyard, lights glowed in Claire's windows, and Marcus knew that tomorrow would bring another day of the beautiful, chaotic routine they'd learned to navigate together. Sophia's research had given Claire her life back. Claire's love had given Marcus his heart back, and somehow, in the midst of loss and healing, they'd created something neither had dared to hope for, a family born not from biology or legal documents, but from the simple choice to show up for each other, day after day. 18 months after that first dinner in Claire's modest apartment, Marcus thought he'd weathered the worst of corporate politics. He was wrong. Richard Hawthorne sat in his corner office reviewing a thick manila folder, marked Confidential Investigation M. Sir Wellington. The private investigator he'd hired had exceeded expectations, documenting every school pickup, every hospital visit, every intimate moment that proved Marcus Wellington had compromised his fiduciary duty to shareholders. Romantic involvement with a beneficiary of corporate funds, Hawthorne murmured to himself, savoring the words like fine wine. This is better than I hoped. The photographs were damning. Marcus kissing Claire outside the hospital, the 3 of them at Harper's soccer game family dinners that looked suspiciously domestic. Financial records showed the $800,000 in experimental treatment costs, plus apartment purchases, private school tuition, and dozens of smaller expenses that painted a clear picture. Hawthorne's phone buzzed. "Sir, the emergency board meeting is confirmed for tomorrow at 9 a.m., his assistant reported. "Perfect, and the media contacts?" "Standing by for your signal." Across town, Marcus was blissfully unaware of the storm approaching. He sat at his kitchen table helping 8-year-old Harper with her science project on renewable energy, while Hazel painted watercolor flowers nearby. "Uncle Marcus, is this solar panel diagram correct?" Harper asked, her perfectionist nature demanding accuracy in every detail. "Looks perfect to me," Marcus said, marveling at how naturally the word perfect came when describing anything these girls created. Claire emerged from the bedroom where she'd been taking a call with her new publisher. The success of Sophia's treatment protocol had led to book deals, speaking engagements, and consulting opportunities that kept her busier than ever. "Good news," she announced. "Johns Hopkins wants me to consult on their new patient advocacy program. It's exactly the kind of work Sophia would have loved." Marcus pulled her onto his lap, ignoring Hazel's giggle at their affection. "She'd be proud of everything you've accomplished." "We've accomplished," Claire corrected, kissing his temple. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." The next morning shattered their peace like a sledgehammer through crystal. Marcus arrived at Wellington Industries to find the boardroom already packed with grim-faced executives and two men in expensive suits he didn't recognize. Lawyers, clearly. "Marcus," Hawthorne began without preamble, "please take a seat. We have serious matters to discuss." The folder Hawthorne opened contained 18 months of Marcus's private life laid bare in clinical detail. Photographs, financial records, medical bills, school enrollment documents, everything that proved his relationship with Claire Morrison wasn't casual charity, but deep personal involvement. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hawthorne addressed the board like a prosecutor presenting his case, "I present evidence of our CEO's systematic breach of fiduciary responsibility." Board member Harrison Webb shifted uncomfortably. "Richard, this seems excessive. $800,000 in experimental medical treatment for a woman with whom Marcus has developed a romantic relationship," Hawthorne continued relentlessly. "Purchase of a $1.2 million apartment at below market rates, private school tuition, healthcare premiums, living expenses, all funded through corporate resources under the guise of research investments." Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. Every private moment, every family dinner, every bedtime story had been cataloged and weaponized. "This constitutes clear conflict of interest," Hawthorne declared. "Our CEO has used company funds to finance his personal relationships while lying to this board about the nature of these expenditures. The medical research was legitimate," Marcus said, finding his voice. "Claire's case study has led to breakthrough treatments. That conveniently benefited your girlfriend," Hawthorne shot back. "How many other patients could have received treatment with those funds? How many shareholders lost returns because you prioritized your romantic interests?" The lawyers Hawthorne had brought began explaining legal ramifications, potential shareholder lawsuits, SEC investigations, criminal charges for misappropriation of corporate funds. "The media is already asking questions," one lawyer warned. Wall Street Journal received an anonymous tip about questionable expenses in Wellington Industries charitable giving. Within hours, the story exploded across financial news networks. CEO's romance costs, shareholders millions, and love affair threatens corporate empire. Marcus's phone rang constantly with reporters seeking comment on the Wellington Industries scandal. That evening, Marcus found Claire crying in her kitchen while Harper and Hazel did homework in their bedroom, blissfully unaware that their family was under attack. "I saw the news," Claire said without looking up. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen." "This isn't your fault," Marcus said firmly, kneeling beside her chair. "Hawthorne hired investigators to spy on us. He's the one who turned private matters into public scandal." "But it's true, isn't it?" Claire's voice broke. "You did spend company money on my treatment, on our apartment, on the girls' school. Maybe what we have isn't worth destroying everything you built." Marcus gripped her hands tighter. "Don't you dare blame yourself for getting sick. Don't apologize for letting me help save your life." "Maybe I should leave," Claire whispered. "Take the girls somewhere far away until this dies down. Give you space to repair the damage." "No." Marcus's voice carried absolute conviction. "I already lost one family. I won't lose another. Not to Hawthorne's ambition or media vultures or anyone else. But your company can be rebuilt. Money can be replaced. But you, Harper, Hazel, you're irreplaceable." Marcus pulled Claire into his arms, feeling her shake with suppressed sobs. "I don't care if fighting for us costs me everything else. Some things matter more than corporate empires." Outside, photographers with telephoto lenses captured intimate moments through windows, feeding the media frenzy that threatened to consume everything they'd built together. Over the following weeks, the battle intensified. Hawthorne gained support from conservative shareholders who viewed Marcus's actions as reckless emotional decision-making. Legal bills mounted as Marcus hired the best corporate defense attorneys money could buy. "Mr. Wellington," his lead attorney explained during a strategy session, "if we can prove the medical research generated legitimate scientific value, we might minimize the conflict of interest charges. But the appearance of impropriety is significant." Marcus stared out his office window at the city where he'd built his empire. now watching it crumble under the weight of loving someone more than balance sheets. "I want to be clear about something," he told his legal team. "I won't settle any case that requires me to end my relationship with Claire Morrison or distance myself from her daughters. Whatever Hawthorne wants, whatever the shareholders demand, that's non-negotiable." His lawyers exchanged glances. They'd seen executives sacrifice families to save corporations countless times, but Marcus Wellington seemed prepared to do the opposite. "Sir," his lead counsel warned gently, "that position might cost you controlling interest in your own company." Marcus thought of Harper's excited face when she'd shown him her science project, of Hazel's sleepy voice asking for bedtime stories, of Claire's grateful tears when doctors confirmed her cancer was in remission. "Then that's a price I'm willing to pay," he said quietly. The war room atmosphere in Marcus's office felt suffocating as his legal team spread documents across every available surface. 3 months of corporate warfare had taken its toll. Marcus looked exhausted. Claire had lost weight from stress, and even Harper and Hazel sensed the tension that followed them everywhere. "Mr. Wellington," his lead attorney said grimly, "Hawthorne has scheduled the final shareholder vote for next Friday. Unless we find something to discredit his accusations, you'll likely lose controlling interest in your own company." Marcus nodded, wearily. The media circus had intensified rather than died down, with financial journalists dissecting every aspect of his relationship with Claire. Stock prices fluctuated wildly as investors grew nervous about leadership instability. "Sir?" Margaret knocked tentatively on the door. "There's something you need to see immediately." She handed him a sealed envelope marked, "Urgent, Wellington Board, Audit Committee." Marcus's heart sank, expecting another legal attack from Hawthorne's camp. Instead, he found something extraordinary. "What is it?" Claire asked, noticing the sudden change in Marcus's expression. "The Audit Committee found discrepancies," Marcus said slowly, his voice growing stronger with each word. "Not in my expenses, in Hawthorne's." The documents revealed a devastating pattern. For over 3 years, Richard Hawthorne had been systematically diverting funds from Wellington Industries' charitable foundation into his personal investment portfolio. The amounts were staggering, nearly $2.3 million in total, far exceeding anything Marcus had spent on Claire's treatment. Hawthorne created shell companies, Marcus's attorney explained, scanning the audit findings with growing excitement. Fake charities that funneled money into real estate ventures and high-risk stock purchases. The board commissioned this audit themselves when shareholders demanded complete financial transparency. Marcus felt a surge of vindictive satisfaction, but it was quickly replaced by something more powerful, the realization that his family was finally safe from attack. "There's more," Margaret said, producing additional documents. The investigators found that Hawthorne hired the private detective using company funds, not his personal money. He literally used corporate resources to spy on you and build his case. Within hours, the story exploded across the same media outlets that had vilified Marcus weeks earlier. Wellington VP embezzled millions while attacking CEO's charity, and corporate whistleblower exposed as fraudster. The emergency board meeting that Friday felt like a complete reversal of fortune. Hawthorne sat pale and silent as federal investigators reviewed evidence of his embezzlement scheme. The same board members who had questioned Marcus's judgment now looked ashamed of their doubts. "Richard Hawthorne is hereby terminated for cause and will face criminal prosecution," Board Chairman Harrison Webb announced. Furthermore, this board extends its full confidence in Marcus Wellington's leadership and apologizes for the unwarranted scrutiny of his personal life. Marcus accepted their apology graciously, but privately he felt no satisfaction in Hawthorne's downfall, only relief that the ordeal was over. The vindication felt even sweeter when it was followed by news from the hospital. Claire Morrison, 18 months post-diagnosis, Dr. Peterson announced to the packed conference room where Marcus, Patricia Chen, and Claire herself waited for the results of her latest comprehensive screening. "I'm pleased to report complete remission with no detectable cancer cells." The words hung in the air like a miracle. Complete remission. After 18 months of experimental treatment based on Sophia's unfinished research, Claire was officially cancer-free. The immunotherapy, Protocol has exceeded all expectations, Dr. Peterson continued. Claire's case will become the gold standard for future pancreatic cancer treatment. We estimate this breakthrough could save thousands of lives annually. Claire burst into tears, not the heartbroken sobs Marcus had witnessed during her darkest moments, but pure joy unleashed after months of cautious hope. Sophia's research worked, she whispered. She's still saving lives. That evening, they gathered in Marcus's penthouse for a celebration that felt like the culmination of 2 years of struggle and growth. Harper and Hazel, now mature 8-year-olds who had lived through more challenges than most adults, finally understood what the medical terminology meant. Their mama was completely healthy. So Mama won't get sick again? Hazel asked with typical directness. The doctors say I'm cured, Claire confirmed, pulling both girls onto her lap. And Uncle Marcus will keep being part of our family forever. Even if people are mean to him on TV? Harper asked, referring to the media coverage they'd been shielded from but somehow intuited. Even then, Marcus said firmly, nothing will make me leave you three. We're a family now, no matter what anyone else thinks. The corporate victory felt almost secondary to this moment. Watching Claire laugh without the shadow of illness, seeing the girls play with the carefree abandon of children who felt secure in their world, knowing that their unconventional family had survived every test. Later, after the girls fell asleep in the guest room they still considered their second home, Marcus and Claire stood on the balcony overlooking the city lights. I was terrified that defending us would destroy everything you built, Claire admitted. I learned something during this fight, Marcus replied, pulling her close. Protecting the people I love didn't weaken my leadership, it strengthened it. The employees saw me stand up for my values under pressure. The board learned they could trust me to make difficult decisions based on principle, not just profit. Claire smiled, leaning against his chest. Sophia would be amazed by everything that's happened. Her research saved my life, but loving her led you to save all of us. Marcus looked through the window at Harper and Hazel sleeping peacefully, their stuffed animals scattered around them like a fortress of comfort. Tomorrow would bring new challenges: running a company, raising 2 brilliant girls, building a marriage with a woman who'd taught him that love was worth fighting for. But tonight, for the first time in over 2 years, Marcus Wellington felt completely at peace. He'd lost his first family to fate, but he'd chosen to fight for his second family against every obstacle. The victory was sweeter because it had been earned through sacrifice, determination, and the radical decision to prioritize love over everything else. 6 months after Hawthorne's downfall, Marcus sat at the dinner table in Claire's apartment watching Harper help Hazel with her math homework while Claire prepared their favorite pasta dish. The scene felt so natural, so perfectly ordinary that he almost forgot how extraordinary their journey had been. Uncle Marcus, Harper looked up from the textbook with her characteristic directness. Why don't you and Mama get married? Everyone at school asks if you're our stepdad, and I never know what to say. Claire paused mid-stir, sauce spoon suspended over the pot. Marcus felt his heart skip, not from nervousness, but from the simplicity of the moment he'd been planning for weeks. That's actually something I wanted to talk to you girls about, Marcus said, reaching into his jacket pocket for the small velvet box that had been waiting for the right moment. Harper, Hazel, would you like me to be your official dad, forever and always? Both girls erupted simultaneously. You already are. Hazel launched herself from her chair into Marcus's arms while Harper, ever practical, examined the engagement ring with scientific curiosity. It's beautiful, Harper pronounced with authority. Mama, you have to say yes. Claire's eyes filled with tears as Marcus knelt beside her chair, the girls flanking him like tiny co-conspirators. Claire Morrison, will you marry me and let me officially adopt these incredible daughters of ours? Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes to all of it. The ceremony 3 months later was everything they'd wanted. Intimate, meaningful, and focused on family rather than spectacle. Patricia Chen served as Claire's maid of honor, beaming with pride as she watched the family she'd helped create. Exchange vows in Marcus's penthouse garden. I promise to love and protect all 3 of you, Marcus said, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. To be present for soccer games and art shows, Math homework and bedtime, stories, celebrations, and challenges alike. Harper and Hazel served as flower girls and ring bearers, their matching lavender dresses complementing Claire's simple but elegant cream gown. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the girls cheered louder than anyone. The legal adoption of Harper and Hazel proved more complex than the wedding, requiring months of paperwork, background checks, and court appearances. But the day the judge's gavel made it official, Marcus understood that biology was irrelevant. These were his daughters in every way that mattered. "Daddy," Hazel said experimentally as they left the courthouse, testing the word like a new flavor. "Daddy Marcus." "I like it," Harper decided with characteristic authority. "It feels right." Their search for a family home led them to a charming colonial in Connecticut, with the yard Claire had always dreamed of for the girls. The moving process became an adventure, with Harper organizing boxes with military precision, while Hazel named each room based on its personality. "This is the happy kitchen," she announced, spinning in the sunlit space that would host countless family breakfasts. "And that's the cozy reading room where Daddy will help with homework." Wellington Industries had emerged stronger from the scandal, its reputation enhanced by Marcus's principled leadership during crisis. The company became a model for conscious capitalism, attracting investors focused on environmental, social, and governance (ESG) principles. The Sophia Wellington Institute for Medical Research has received its largest grant yet, Margaret announced during a board meeting. $50 million from the Hartwell Foundation to expand immunotherapy research. Claire had become the Institute's Director of Patient Advocacy, using her unique perspective as both medical professional and cancer survivor to bridge the gap between research and human experience. "Every protocol we develop will be tested not just for medical efficacy, but for real-world impact on families," she explained to a conference of oncologists. Treatment success isn't just about tumor reduction. It's about preserving quality of life for patients and their loved ones. Watching her speak at medical conferences, Marcus marveled at how Sophia's research had created not just a cure, but a legacy of compassionate care that would benefit countless families facing similar struggles. 2.5 years after Patricia's letter changed everything, Marcus stood at Sophia's graveside holding a bouquet of daisies while his family gathered around the polished marble headstone. The October morning was crisp and beautiful, painted in the golden colors Sophia had always loved. "We brought pictures to show you Angel Sophia," 9-year-old Hazel announced, carefully placing her latest artwork beside the flowers. The drawing showed a family of 5, Marcus, Claire, Harper, Hazel, and a tiny figure labeled Baby Wellington, all standing under protective angel wings. Claire, 4 months pregnant and glowing with health, rested her hand on her growing belly. "We wanted you to know about your newest grandchild," she said softly to the headstone. "The baby you'll never meet, but somehow helped create." Harper, ever practical, had brought her report card to share. "I got all A's, Angel Sophia. Daddy says you would be proud of how hard I work in school." Marcus knelt beside the grave, his heart full instead of empty for the first time since Sophia's death. "I kept the promises I broke before," he whispered. "I honored your research, found the family we dreamed of, and learned to love again without letting go of you." The Sophia Wellington Institute had transformed from a small research initiative into an internationally recognized center for innovative cancer treatment. Over 300 families had received life-saving immunotherapy based on Sophia's original protocols, with success rates that exceeded every medical prediction. "Dr. Chen says your research has created a whole new field of personalized medicine," Claire added, addressing the headstone as naturally as if Sophia could hear every word. "Children who would have lost their parents are growing up in complete families because of the work you started." Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The broken widower who'd arrived at this cemetery 2 years ago no longer existed. In his place stood a man who understood that love multiplied rather than diminished when shared, that honoring Sophia's memory meant embracing life rather than hiding from it. "Harper wants to be an oncologist like you," Marcus continued. "She says she wants to help families stay together." Hazel plans to be an artist who paints hope for sad people. The girls had grown into remarkable young women, each carrying forward different aspects of the compassion they'd learned through their family's struggles. Harper channeled her perfectionism into academic excellence and volunteer work at the Children's Hospital. Hazel used her artistic gifts to create comfort items for pediatric patients. The new baby will grow up knowing about Angel Sophia, Claire promised, about the brilliant doctor who saved Mama's life and brought our family together. Walking back to their car, Marcus carried Hazel on his shoulders while Harper skipped beside Claire, already planning decorations for the nursery. The cemetery visit had become an annual tradition, not a pilgrimage of grief but a celebration of how love transcends loss. That evening, tucked into their Connecticut home with its lived-in warmth and comfortable chaos, Marcus found Claire in the nursery they were preparing. She sat in the rocking chair he'd assembled, folding tiny clothes while humming softly. "Any regrets?" she asked as he joined her, settling on the floor beside the chair. Marcus considered the question seriously. 3 years ago, he'd possessed a corporate empire, luxury penthouses, and unlimited wealth. Now he had a modest family home, 2 daughters, who left toys everywhere, a pregnant wife who painted watercolors in her spare time, and a company focused on social impact rather than maximum profit. "None," he said with absolute certainty. "Sophia brought me to you, you brought me back to life, and together we're creating something neither of us could have imagined alone." The baby kicked strongly enough for Marcus to feel it through Claire's shirt, and he pressed his palm against the movement with wonder. This child would grow up surrounded by the love that had saved all of them, the healing power of choosing hope over despair, connection over isolation, purpose over mere success. Outside, autumn wind rustled through the trees Sophia would never see, carrying the promise of seasons she'd never experience. But her legacy lived on in every family dinner they shared, every bedtime story Marcus told, every breakthrough at the medical institute that bore her name. Marcus Wellington had learned the most valuable lesson of his life, the greatest inheritance he could leave wasn't money or property, but the capacity for love that multiplied across generations. Sophia's death had nearly destroyed him, but it had also led him to the family that completed his healing. As Claire drifted off to sleep in, his arms and their daughters dreamed safely down the hall. Marcus whispered one final thank you to the angel who'd guided him home,